Hey everybody, time to get into some Rams football here. Mark from Rams Up. We're going to get to a few things this episode. We are going to get through my 13 thoughts, some random thoughts about the Rams and the NFL, and I'm going to have my Week 6 game picks and my power rankings. Going to be a little bit all over the place, but got some good stuff here. We'll start with the important stuff. Before we get started at all, how about the Dodgers, man? Just got done watching that game. Pretty entertaining game, pretty stressful. And their big guns have not been coming through, but they're figuring it out. They get a run on a walk and a run on an error at the end of the game there. Felt so bad for that pitcher, it really did. Panicked. Did he really lose count of the outs? I'm not sure. It's very possible. A relief pitcher coming in that situation. But Andy Pages, the hero for a bouncer back to the mound, I probably butchered his name. I'm not quite feeling it for Andy, but hey, good for him. The Dodgers get the win, and well, I'd like to see them play the Cubs. The Brewers might be the best team in baseball, and I respect that. But Dodgers Cubs, wouldn't that be sweet? The Cubs need to win tonight. As I'm recording this, they're up 3-0, down 2-1 in the series, though. And I'll have another tidbit on the Dodgers at the end here, part of my 13 thoughts. But the first thing we want to talk about is the updated injury report. We'll have one more coming out, but the Thursday report, Omar Speights and Rob Havenstein still not practicing. Limited were Colby Parkinson, Nate Landman, Tyler Higbee, and Tutu Atwell, a new addition there. Man, hopefully he can go because I think he's close to a really big breakout game. And you know what? If Tutu gives us one big play every 3 or 4 weeks, I'm okay with that. But if Havenstein can't go, it'll obviously be Warren McClendon, who I think played decently last week. Now, the guard situation, Steve Avila continues to be healthy, and Sean McVay made a kind of odd statement that if he's healthy and he plays at the level they expect, he'll be out there. So not sure what's going on with him. But right now, I think he's the backup left guard. Sorry to say. But Justin Dedich has been hanging okay. Now, the Ravens still really banged up. Cornerback Uwuzie. Quarterback Lamar Jackson still out. He's probably not going to play. Linebacker Roquan Smith did not practice, and guard Ben Cleveland not practicing either. So I would suspect all of them to be out. Limited wide receiver Zay Flowers and wide receiver Walker, cornerback Humphrey, and fullback Ricard, one of the better fullbacks. There aren't a lot of fullbacks in the league, period, but Ricard is one of the better ones. And I was talking to my special assistant about this. Rain expected in this game, by the way. The Ravens are 1-4, and after this game, they go on a bye, and then they have a really easy schedule. I'm not going to recite it here for you, but they could very easily go on a run. So you might think that they would, maybe, just maybe, hold back some of these guys that maybe could go. But hey, let's just get healthy. Rams are heavily favored in this game. If we have to go with our backup quarterback, let's hold out some of these other guys, get healthy, come back after the bye, and do some damage. So we'll see how that goes. But as Ram fans, we are discounting how banged up the opposition is at this point. I think we learned our lesson. But Ravens can't avoid it. Can't deny it. They are really banged up. And before we move on, let's get to my game picks here. And currently, Pete is still 2 games ahead of me. We were even last week. We split the 2 games that he got one right, and I got another one right that we disagreed upon. Now, this week, we disagree on 3 games, and I got the odds showing up here. For those of you listening on the podcast, I have the game and the spread, and then I have who I'm picking and who Pete's picking, and I'll real quickly go through it. I'm picking the Eagles to win over the Giants. That game's going on as I'm recording. Broncos at the Jets. I will take the Broncos. Cardinals at the Colts. Roll with the Colts. Steelers over the Browns. Cowboys over the Panthers. And this is a game Pete and I disagree on. I'm taking the Chargers. He is taking the Dolphins. And I could see that game going either way. LA team traveling to Florida. That's a tough. Chargers are really banged up still on the offensive line and at running back. Got the Rams over the Ravens. Another game we split on. I'm taking the Saints at home over the Patriots. That may seem like an odd pick, but I'm feeling it for the Saints at home. We both have the Jags over the Seahawks, Raiders over the Titans, Packers over the Bengals, and Bucks over the 49ers. And then another game we disagree on, I'm taking the Lions over the Chiefs. That's a 2.5 point spread. The Chiefs are favored. Now, the Lions are clearly the better team right now. Chiefs are at home. And I feel like, and my special assistant felt the same way, that this is a game that the odds makers are just daring you to take the Lions in this one. So that's what I did. So I think the Lions are going to win outright. And I'll get to my bets here in a second. Then I got the Bills taking care of the Falcons. We need the Falcons to lose a few here. They're 2-2. They got to do much worse. Every time they lose, improves our potential draft position with their draft pick. And then the Commanders over the Bears. And I saw a bunch of games that I really liked. I think I might have been drunk when I made some of these, a lot of these picks, because I usually take 2 or 3, make 2 or 3, and I got a bunch here. I'm taking the Giants and 7.5 points over the Eagles. And by the time you hear this, I may have already lost that bet. And there's just a lot of big spreads here, and I couldn't resist myself. And another one was the Jets 7.5 over the Broncos. I'm taking the Cardinals and the points over the Colts. That's 7 points they're getting. And I'm taking the Browns and the 5.5 points over the Steelers. And I'll have a word on the Steelers here later on. And what else here? My other bets, I told you I like the Saints over the Patriots. And I'm going to take the points in that one, though, because that's I'm getting the points. I'll be a little conservative here. I will not take the money line. I'll take the Saints and the 3.5. And then the one I really liked, and this is maybe a sucker bet too, but how often do NFL teams get 14 points? Bengals plus 14 at Green Bay, and the Bengals have been getting shellacked, but I'm taking them and the points, and then the Lions and the money line. So those are my picks, better or worse, and we'll see how I did. And I've been doing pretty good this year. With the syndicate, I am up, and on my picks, I am up. If every bet's $100, I'm up 200 or 300, I think. Enough of my game picks. Let's get to my 13 random thoughts about our Rams. My special assistant pinged me on this as well. We were pretty devastated after that game, and there are the Rams, Jarquez Hunter, Blake Corum, some other players at Disneyland having a great old time at the Magic Kingdom following that loss. I don't know, man. Bad timing from my perspective. Hey, Ram players, that Disneyland trip, we're canceling it. That's what I think we should have heard. Now, I mentioned the Steelers earlier, and the reason I wanted to mention them is that AFC North, man, they are in first place. And, I'll talk about them in my power rankings coming up here in a second, and they are not in my top 12. And then I saw some other rankings where they're at the 5th ranked team. And I'm sorry, I'm not feeling it. I don't think this is a team that's ready to make a playoff run, even though they have a very good shot at winning that division, which has turned into perhaps the worst division in the National Football League. The Steelers are not the 5th best team. Now, Omar Speights is banged up, so we hear that it's a competition between Sean Dolac and Troy Reeder. Please give me some Sean Dolac, please. If for no other reason, I just want to see what he brings to the table. And maybe Troy Reeder ends up being the better player, the answer, but we need to find out. Now, there was a trade. There was a trade this week, or just the other day, actually. And what was that trade? Let me track it down here. I'm going to say this name. I'm going to get this name really bad here. The Ravens traded edge rusher Odafe Owe. The Ravens traded him to the Chargers for a safety. And at first I thought, oh, okay, Chargers adding a good edge rusher. And then my special assistant pointed out that's a Harbaugh trade, and it doesn't sit well with him. And I got to thinking about that, and I think he's got a point. Kind of like in fantasy football, I'm in the same league as family members, and I try to avoid trading with them because it's just kind of a bad look. That's just me. It's just not worth it to raise suspicions that there's some kind of coordination between the two owners, two family members, Harbaugh trade. I don't know. And then I also got to thinking, if the Ravens are uploading or downloading, offloading some good players, wouldn't Derrick Henry be a good fit for the Chargers right now? And maybe if they lose to the Rams, we'll see some movement. But again, they got that easy schedule coming up. Now, talking about trades, we have been talking about adding a cornerback, and I think they need to. Greg Newsome, one of the guys that seemed like a logical trade target. The Jags picked him up from the Browns. Good move for them. And I was looking at the cornerback market, and some guys that we've talked about. Another Raven player who's may not play this week, Chidobe Awuzie. Let's take a look at him. 30 years old, out of San Jose, a second-round pick of the Cowboys, been with the Bengals, Titans, and now the Ravens. 6 feet, 202 pounds. Intercepted Matthew Stafford in the Super Bowl when he played for the Bengals. Tore his ACL in 2022, has 8 career interceptions. Questionable for this game, and he's under contract 1 year, $1.25 million. So if he was healthy and the Rams thought he would be a good addition, certainly affordable, and I don't think they'd have to give up a lot for him. But of course, he's got to get the health issue squared away. Now, a couple of Ram fans have talked about L'Jarius Sneed of the Titans. He's 6'1", 192, two-time Super Bowl champion with the Chiefs, now with the Titans. 10 career interceptions. He signed a 4-year, $76 million contract, though, so he would be a little bit pricey to take on that contract. Of course, maybe you get him cheaply as far as what you have to give up to get him, because you got to take on all that money, and I'm not even sure if that would work for the Rams. And another guy that probably wouldn't work contract-wise for the Rams, Denzel Ward of the Browns, cornerback, 4-time Pro Bowler, 17 career interceptions, 5'11", 190, and he's under a 5-year, $100 million contract. So he might be out of the question just due to the contract. And then there's Sauce Gardner. Someone mentioned him. I doubt the Jets would move him under any conditions. A talented young cornerback. And he signed a 4-year, $120 million contract. So as we talk about these cornerbacks, you have to consider everything. And when you look at that, it may be Awuzie that might be, of these guys, the most logical guy to add. And I just don't know if he's a player the Rams like. But we all agree the Rams need to make a move. Now, we've been talking about the Rams' next quarterback, and maybe we've moved off the Arch Manning hype train at this point. He's going to stay another year for sure. He just has to. And there's a lot of really good quarterbacks coming out there. There's probably 6 or 7 quarterbacks that could go in the first 2 rounds. And then there's a new guy, a new kid on the block, this Trinidad Chambliss. And what a story. Played 3 seasons at Ferris State, and I had to do a double take on that. Fresno State? They're the Ferris State Bulldogs, not the Fresno State Bulldogs. Ferris State in Michigan, played 3 seasons there, threw for 3,300 yards and 31 TDs, transfers to Ole Miss to become the backup. Their starter gets banged up, and he steps in, and he has 3 starts, undefeated. Fresno State is now the 4th-ranked team, and if you watch this guy play, I looked really briefly at his tape from the Arkansas game, and he's nimble, senses pressure in the pocket, moves around really well, and then on the run makes really quick decisions, quick release, and very accurate. Now, I'm not sure about the arm strength. He had a couple of long passes that maybe held up the receiver a little bit. The receiver had to slow up for them a little bit, but it's just a couple of data points. But he has the it factor, and if the Les Snead and Sean McVay are serious about adding a quarterback that can go off schedule and be more of a dual threat, and this guy is definitely a dual threat. He's kind of like a little bit larger version of Kyler Murray, I think, but hopefully a better passer and a guy that's dedicated to the game more so than Kyler Murray. Sorry, Kyler. That's how I see it. But what's really attractive about a guy like this is, and some of these other quarterbacks, as this quarterback market develops for the 2026 draft, the Rams may not have to use one of those top 2 picks for a quarterback. They may be able to use the first one on a left tackle or cornerback, maybe even move back with that other pick and get a really good quarterback for the future. And Trinidad Chambliss, I'm not making an argument for drafting him. Maybe there's a undeserved hype train developing for Trinidad, just like there was for Arch Manning. But if he's a guy that proves that he can, that looks like he can survive in the NFL and be a productive NFL player and a team leader, has all of the characteristics that you need of a starting NFL quarterback, and he's there in the second round. Wow. So you use your first 2 picks on premium positions. We don't need to draft an edge rusher. You go out and get a left tackle and a cornerback, and draft a guy like Chambliss in the second round. Hey, I'm just dreaming. It's a long time till the draft, and we'll see how Chambliss develops. But pretty cool story. Guy comes out of nowhere, and he's got his team top of the heap in the SEC. Now, I wanted to talk about, it just occurred to me, let's take a quick comparison of Cooper Kupp versus Davante Adams, because we kind of swapped those guys out, right? So far, Kupp, 21 catches for 221 yards. Davante Adams, 22 catches. Only one more catch, but for 357 yards and 3 TDs. And the contract, Kupp is a $9.3 million hit, and Adams a $12 million hit. So who won that move? I think Cooper Kupp, Davante Adams, Seattle, and Los Angeles won that came out ahead on that. I really do. I think Kupp is earning his keep there and probably helping those young receivers develop, teaching them a few tricks. And Davante has been very productive for the Rams at a cost, but I think it's certainly worth it. I just don't think the Rams could have continued down the road with Cooper Kupp based on what we saw and what the Rams need from their number 1 or number 2 receiver. Let's also compare Ernest Jones to Nate Landman. And I saw Cameron DeSilva, who I love, great content, and he was talking up some plays that Ernest Jones has made. And true, he has the tape. We shared some video of him making a big time stop at the goal line. I think it was at the goal line. Maybe it was just a 4th down play. Maybe it was just a short yardage. I don't recall. But Ernest Jones making a really big play. And I had already started to compare these guys when I saw that, doing this Kupp and Adams comparison and the Ernest Jones and Nate Landman comparison. And it's eerie how close their stats are. Ernest Jones, 40 tackles, 22 solo. Nate Landman, 41 tackles, 22 solo. Ernest Jones, 3 passes defended. Nate Landman, 3 passes defended. Landman has the one punch forced fumble. So pretty darn close. The big difference is Ernest Jones, a $5.2 million cap hit. Nate Landman, a $1.1 million cap hit. Now, Ernest Jones is probably the more athletic and dynamic linebacker. Nate Landman, pretty solid though. Not a big difference. Biggest difference really is in the price. And I wanted to close out talking about our Dodgers. What a game. But before this game ended, there's 2 things I wanted to talk about. One is Clayton Kershaw. I just get a really bad sinking feeling when he comes in relief. And I hope they they end that experiment. I'd like to see him, but that's probably the right place to use him. Long relief in a game where you're behind. And we'll probably see him again, especially if they get to the World Series. We're going to see him again. He's going to have to pitch in somehow. I just hope it isn't in a critical situation in relief. I'll probably have to leave the room. And Kiki Hernandez, still my favorite Dodger. Had a couple interesting plays tonight, playing really good defense. Didn't get the clutch hit I was hoping for at the end there, but he remains my favorite Dodger. You're going to kill me for saying this, but I feel better about Kiki coming up in a clutch situation in the playoffs than I do Mookie Betts or Ohtani. Now, Mookie Betts has been heating up, though, so I may change my mind on that. Ohtani, man, really disappointing so far, but we can get through the Philadelphia Phillies with almost no contribution from Ohtani. That's a really good sign. Now we'll close things out with my power rankings. Hey everybody, let's get into my week 5 power rankings. 5 weeks in the books, and how is the NFL stacking up right now, racking and stacking these teams? And as you know, I only do the top 12. I'll talk about some teams that maybe are worth mentioning, and there's a bunch of them actually. Talk about parity in the NFL. I mean, you get down to the in between, like maybe the 4th and the 16th, 17th ranked teams. Not a lot of difference. Not a lot of differences, and I guess that's a good thing. It makes for some entertaining football as we find out week to week. But as I introduce my 9 through 12 teams here, at number 12, I have the Broncos reemerging. They got that big win over the Eagles. They are tied with the Chargers, first place in the AFC West, both 3-2. Now, I still have the Chiefs in the top 12. Tough road loss against the Jags. We really could have had that one 99-yard interception return. And then Trevor Lawrence pulling some magic there at the very end. But Chiefs are still a dangerous team. But I have them at number 11. Maybe some will take issue with that. I dropped my Rams all the way down to number 10, and they're 3-2. They're still in a really good place, but you just can't lose to a divisional rival at home. And that rival is missing all that star power. Just no excuse for it. So there is a concern there about the Rams and their secondary at the moment, and their protection while trying to kick field goals. Two really big concerns. And I have the 49ers right above them. I still think, dare I say, they may have some quarterback and wide receiver issues moving forward. But if they get healthy, they may have a quarterback controversy, actually. But I have them at number 9. I think that's fair. Now, before I go on, the teams that are outside looking in, I dropped the Chargers out, even though they're tied with the Broncos. They're just not passing the eye test right now. I'm sorry. Their offensive line really having issues. And, Commanders really controlled that game after it was halfway through the second quarter. Commanders just took over and steamrolled the Chargers pretty much. Maybe steamrolled's too strong a term, but you get the point. They did not hold serve at home against the Commanders. And then, you got teams like the Steelers, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Patriots even, all just outside looking in, all good football teams. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. You even get into the next group here. Not much difference between, let's say, my number 5 team and a team like the Patriots. There really isn't. And who are my 5 through 8 teams? At number 8, I have the Green Bay Packers, 2-1-1, coming off a bye. I had them as high as number 3, possibly number 2, but a loss and a tie denting their prospects here. And the Commanders rebounding a little bit with the big win over the Chargers. They're my number 7 team. And I have the Jags all the way up to number 6. And I'm still not totally sold on them, but give credit where credit is due. them and the Colts. It's going to be interesting to see how does that stack up right now. The AFC South, the Colts and the Jags, both 4-1, a division that a lot of us were picking the Texans to win it. Texans aren't out of it, 2-3. Titans got their first win. So, when we talk about toughest schedule coming into this year, the Rams playing the AFC South, that was considered an advantage. Maybe not so much, although we're 3-0 against the AFC South with the Jags left. And then we also drew the Ravens, and we were like really sour about that. We're getting the Ravens while the 49ers are getting the Browns, the Seahawks Cards getting the Steelers and the Bengals. Not sure who's getting what there, but all of a sudden, the Ravens might be the worst team in that division, right? It's kind of a crappy division, so that's not really saying much. But Ravens, we'll talk about the Ravens in our roundtable and our pregame keys to victories with Ian, so I'm not going to touch on that a lot more. But Jags are my number 6 team. Trevor Lawrence, man, you could tell he was stoked to finally get a big win. And then the Colts at number 5, just a solid, rock solid football team, not super flashy, but getting it done. And then my top 4, who do I have? My number 4 team, still the Eagles. Boy, there's some worries there, isn't there? The Eagles just not impressing on either side of the ball, in my opinion. And I don't watch every down, but I do see the stats. I see the scores, and I see some highlights, and I saw them firsthand against the Rams. And, you talk about elite teams in the NFL, and right now they're not one of them. I'm sorry. And I got to tell you, I saw it again in this Dodgers-Phillies game. Took extra joy with the Dodgers winning the 2 in Philadelphia, and they're booing their team there again. They booed the Eagles, and now they're booing the Phillies. And I was talking to a couple of really big Dodger fans, and I asked them, when was the last time the Dodgers got booed at Dodger Stadium? And I don't know if I've ever seen it, to be honest with you. Just a cultural divide there between Philly fans and Dodger fans. And I don't know if one approach is better than the other, but not booing my Rams, it'd take a lot for. And, during the dark days with Jeff Fisher and some of those teams, Steve Spagnuolo and even Scott Linehan, if I was at a game, yeah, maybe I would have booed. But given those circumstances, I think it would have made a lot more sense than booing your baseball team in a divisional round playoff game because they're struggling against a really talented pitcher like Blake Snell. I guess that's what they are booing. But enough with the Eagles. My number 3 team, the Buccaneers. They go into Seattle and take care of business without Bucky Irvin, without Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield. I was going to have a poll, who's the best quarterback in the NFC right now, but being a Rams poll, I'm sure Stafford would win, but so I didn't go that route. I had another fun poll out there instead, but Baker Mayfield, man, you gotta love that guy. My number 2 team, the Bills, even though they took a loss there to the Patriots at home, again, we're getting into this parity again. Certainly, I still consider the Bills the preeminent power in the AFC, but that was not a good day for them. Drake May and the Patriots looking like maybe they'll threaten the Bills a little bit. Bills got to set a course correction there, but they're my second best team. And, I do not enjoy telling you my number 1 team right now is the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff. And man, I got to give them credit because they've been through some changes there, lose their offensive and defensive coordinator. They've suffered a lot of injuries on the defense over the last season and a half, and they look pretty darn good right now. They need to be tested again as we move into the middle part of the season, see if they can keep it up. But hey, they're the best team in the NFL right now. Who would you favor over the Lions at a neutral site right now? To be honest with you, probably be the Bucks. Bucks and Lions would be a fun game. And I think we get that soon enough, do we? When is, let me look real quick at the schedules here. I know there's some really good games coming up. We have the next week's schedule is pretty interesting. We have the Cardinals and the Colts. Cardinals, man, flaming out early. We have the Chargers and the Dolphins. That one has some interest there. The Rams and Ravens. The Saints and the Jags. I'm sorry, the Seahawks and the Jags. We'll be pulling for the Jags there to get rich before we go play them in London. You got the 49ers and the Bucks. That's the game, not the Lions, Bucks. 49ers and Bucks. Another, man, we really need the Bucks to pull off the win there, don't we? And then that's the game I was thinking of. We have the Lions and Chiefs, and the Chiefs, man, they have a tough road here. They're 2-3, looking up at the Chargers and the Broncos, and now the Lions come to town. That's a must-see game. And then the two Monday night games, the Bills and the Falcons and the Bears and the Commanders. So some fun games this week, but right now, Lions at the top of the heap, followed by the Bills and Bucks, and then the Eagles. Those are my top 4. And rounding out the top 12, number 5, the Colts, number 6, the Jags, number 7, the Commanders, 8, the Packers, 9, Niners, 10, Rams, 11, Chiefs, and 12, Broncos. There you have it, my Week 5, post-Week 5 power rankings.